probably will. I mean, the United States with Donald Trump or without him has always had a very significant impact in Latin America, in Central America, and in Costa Rica. It's a fact of life. The United States is a huge world power. It's the hegemon in the Americas. And even when there are other actors in the region that are so extremely important to us, our bigger brothers and sisters in the north and in the south, the United States will always have a special weight, among other reasons, because we import and we export from and to the United States 50% of what we need or what we produce. So, this is something that it's very clear to me. Now, there's been much speculation about Donald Trump and how this can affect us negatively, and if trade is going to change, and we have a regional agreement with him, similar to NAFTA, and there has been some concern in certain circles regarding the possibility of this agreement being hurt by the new outlook in Washington. But I must say that I think that is not clear yet, and the differences between NAFTA and CAFTA are significant, among other reasons, because the United States is highly favored by CAFTA, while it was hurt, in a way, by NAFTA. So, I think that there's room for maneuvering and to find ways in which we can bridge maybe some differences. Clearly, migration is a difficult issue, particularly for the northern triangle. And but I have to deal with that. I'm not pessimistic. I think there is a lot of possibility for a good understanding. Well, the answer has two words: human talent. We are not cheap. Our workforce is not cheap, but it's highly profitable because we have been investing in public education for over 150 years, and that it cannot be improvised. I mean, the capacity of the Costa Rican workforce is well known, and it's on the record. And fortunately, I don't have to elaborate too much on that to prove it, because the numbers are clear. And the high tech investments that have come to Costa Rica and continue to come to Costa Rica in terms of medical devices, in terms of now creation, not only making of things, but creating them. Microsoft, Intel, clearly point at the fact that the Costa Rican workforce, the Costa Rican human talent, is at the top of the list of the reasons why people come here. I can say other things. I mean, the stability of the political system, the legal certainties that we provide to the investor. I mean, this is a country that, different from others, abides by the rule of law, and this is something very important, to provide the investor with assurances as to the depth of the engagement of the country with the investments that we have. Security, public security, which even when it has become an issue, it was not in the past, but it is an issue now because of international crime. The security regime in Costa Rica, public security that is, still very good. It's one of the lowest crime rate countries in the region. Now, the issue of infrastructure clearly is being handled by this government with a tremendous intensity. We have been putting to work loans that we had not been using. We had the money, but the money had not been invested for decades. And I hope that by the end of my administration, a number of public works that were pending will be finalized, and people will realize that it is indeed possible to invest and to see results on infrastructure investments. And we're fixing bridges, we're building a new convention center, we are building new aqueducts. I have just inaugurated one in the Caribbean that is benefiting 7,000 families. There will be another one finalized before the end of the year, also in the Caribbean, for 14,000 families in the southern part of the province of Limon. And we're seeing lots of new schools and high schools that are being built and will be built, around 117 of them in a package that was negotiated with the Inter-American Development Bank by May of next year. So the move on infrastructure, I think, is being significant, and I see no reason why we cannot continue that. In fact, I have just also enacted a law that will facilitate public-private alliances, which I think will help putting together projects that are just too large for the country to undertake on a public sphere. I'm talking about the second international airport in the country, the large airport, the metropolitan airport that needs to be built. That's a $2 billion plus investment in the next 5 years. I'm also thinking of the dry canal, the so-called dry canal, which is a combination of railroads and roads that will unite the Caribbean Sea with the Pacific using a route through the northern part of the country, which is, I've seen all kinds of numbers for that, from $5 billion to $16 billion, because it would entail a fast train and free zones and other. Well, those projects require the presence of concessions and private funds. So, in terms of infrastructure, I find that the biggest challenge is definitely the fiscal challenge. And for 15 years, we've been trying now to have a fiscal plan enacted. I think that one of the problems that fiscal plan had in the past was that it was a huge package. We broke it down in this administration, and out of 9 different laws, we have already approved 6. But the 3 important ones that are pending are directly related to new income. Turning the sales tax into a VAT, reforming the income tax, and the fiscal rule, which would allow us the budget to be more balanced and force us into fiscal discipline. This is a challenge that we have to finalize in order to be part of the OECD, for example. So it is a high priority. And we have been telling the lawmakers, because this is something that only the Congress, the Costa Rican Congress, can solve. It is their duty, and to find. We presented the proposals. They were first-class proposals endorsed by the World Bank, by the International Monetary Fund, by the Inter-American Development Bank. We have been telling them that there is a high risk of if we don't have that approval, and it is a twofold risk. One part of that risk has to do with our debt, which is pretty high, and the other one has to do with the downgrading of our financial. We have been fortunate because they understand, the agencies know that we're doing a significant effort, and that while we have the deficit still pending, in fact, this administration has been able to lower the deficit from 5.9%, which we received from the previous administration, to 5.2%. But it has not been easy. And I acknowledge that this combination of debt, deficit, and a downgrading of Costa Rica's record can be a problem in well, I think it's going to be remembered as a government that was able to rule without corruption, which I don't think is a small issue.
No, not at this point in time, and not in this region.
Yeah, not in this region. It is only natural that governments would rule without corrupting themselves. But I think it's a necessary reminder that democracy can be virtuous. And so that's one thing. And the second one, I think, is going to be that the government, that my administration was able to render, to give to the new rulers a country in peace and economic stability. I mean, when one looks at the context in which we have been ruling, the international context, and the numbers that we've been able to achieve, you find out that inflation has been virtually zero for the last 3 years. Monetary stability has been significant. I mean, tourism has continued to grow at a very significant pace. We were a government, or we have been a government, that brought for the first time in 40 years collective bargaining documents down. We were able to negotiate those bargaining conditions, and all of this together has provided the Costa Rican citizen with a context of stability, which I think is going to be remembered as a good contribution to our democracy.